Now here are a couple more tips for hanging your W2 wall clock, as well as a couple of things that I forgot to mention before. And so consider this an addendum to the earlier videos. Now if you have hung your clock using the method I talked about with two screws, one up the top that supports the weight, and then one down lower on the frame. And if you've done the measurements, establishing the vertical line, measuring out from that to position the lower screw, and then measuring exact distance between the two, so you have your exact spots and you put the two screws in and you've hung your clock, well, then that's great. You don't even really need to listen anymore. But if you have the type of clock with the nail protruding out the bottom, like I mentioned, or if you're like me, and I never do those measurements when I hang a clock for someone. I never make the measurements before leaving the shop here, and if I did make them, I'd probably lose them anyway. So what I always do is get the clock hung in the correct spot by the screw up above that's solidly into a stud. Hang the clock, start it up, hang the weight, and so forth. Then the thing to look at next is this handy-dandy winding cord that most of these clocks have, with the little pulley down there that I call the yo-yo, and you use that to wind up the weight. Now this isn't true on all of them. Each clock turns out a little different, but on many of them, there's not a lot of clearance here on the clock frame itself. That frame has to be positioned just right, or else one side or the other of this loop is going to rub on it. If I move it a few inches left, it's just laying on the left side of it. Move it too far to the right, and then the right side is that way. So that tells you right there the exact position this clock frame needs to be in. I moved it over so both sides of this loop have space between them and the frame. And now that's in position. If you've got the little nail protruding out, that's when you take the piece of wood or cardboard off of it and push it into the wall to anchor this bottom of the clock. But if it's hung from two screws, and if you have lost your measurements or forgot to make those measurements, or like me, just didn't do it, this is how I do it. First, I get the clock hung, get it positioned exactly from side to side down here the way I want it. Then I pull, let's see if I can do this holding the camera. I pull out the clock and feel back there for that hole. In the back, I can feel it with my finger, this hole back here, where the screw would go. Then I take where did I put it? Okay. I'm going to take a 1.25 inch sheetrock screw, and I pull the clock out again, and then I take this screw between two fingers like this. I find that hole. Where is it? There it is. Let's see if I can show you here. Okay. I find the hole. I've put it in. I put the head of the screw into that hole. Let's see if I can show you. And then I've raised it up in that slot. It's like a keyhole shape back there. So I've raised it up to the top of that keyhole in the narrow part of it. If I had two hands to work with, it would be easier. Then you look at it, make sure it's protruding out perpendicular from the back of the clock, not angled upward, downward, side to side, or anything. Make sure it's protruding out perpendicular. Make sure, once again, that the bottom, those cords are not rubbing. Of course, now that it's out from the wall, it lines up a little bit differently. So you may want to actually take a pencil and make a little mark on the wall, like right in the side of where this point is or something. So you know you got it exactly where you wanted it. Then, I'll show you. I got the screw pointed back. Then I just press on the frame to press that tip of the point of the screw into the sheetrock, so it makes a little hole. And I'll pull the clock out again. Get that screw out of there. Now, let's see if I can show you the little hole that I just made right there. So that I know exactly that the screw should go in exactly that spot. Then I take my larger screw, and it's just sheetrock, so I don't need to pre-drill it or anything. I'll get that set up there like that. Okay. Now, drilling with one hand, holding the camera. Oops. Probably that's what's going to happen. Drilling with one hand, holding the camera with another, I don't highly recommend. But I should be able to do this. Let's see. I'm going to do this to show you. Okay, well, I got it going in there. Oops. Not too far. That's just in the sheetrock, so it's not real tight. So I can turn by hand, get that out about the back of that out about a quarter, maybe or about 5/16 from the wall. All right, now I definitely need both hands. So I'm just gonna put this back on the stand. Now I would recommend doing this without the weight hanging from the cord for the moment. I'm going to let it down, put it back on the floor. Then you lift the clock up to release it from up above. Then you can move it over so that that bottom hole is on the lower screw. And let's see if I can do both of them at the same time here. All right, I got it over both of them. Then I drop it straight down into place, lock it, and now the bottom one is also locked into place. So the bottom of the clock can't move. This should be in the right position.